Hey everyone, Nick here and welcome back to GamerTube, and welcome back to our Bendy and the Dark Revival character concept series. So in today's video we'll be looking at that large monstrous character that we see in the trailer, and we'll be nicknaming this character the Ink Brute. And yes, I am aware that it may be called the Lurker, but I'm not too sure if that's official or not, so we're just going to go with the Ink Brute for now. So we'll go through this character's location, gameplay mechanics, backstory, and all that good stuff as well. As always, I will just state that everything I say in this video isn't exactly what's going to happen in Bendy and the Dark Revival. This is just a fun what-if scenario and a theory, and we hope you enjoy. And lastly, do be sure to subscribe to GamerTube as it helps a lot and it's greatly appreciated. It also keeps you up to date with the videos that we post. Also, I will just address some of the comments that we've been getting. Yes, we are still doing our FNAF character concept series. It's coming very soon and we've got something really awesome planned for you, so stay tuned. Alrighty, well, let's get into the character concept of the Ink Brute. So previously in our Bendy and the Dark Revival character concept series, we've taken a look at the character of the Ink Demon. We theorised how their gameplay segment would go, and their involvement in the beginning act of the game. The main character Audrey narrowly escaped the Ink Demon and finds herself in another area of the studio. She now needs to ready herself to take on whatever new enemies lie ahead of her. So the new enemy we'll be introducing doesn't have a name as of yet. So we'll be calling this new character the Ink Brute. The Ink Brute is a large hulking creature that is made up of the black ink. Multiple parts of debris can be seen sticking out of its body. It could be that its whole body is comprised of debris and surrounded by the ink. Or maybe it's a solid blob of ink that picks up debris from all the walls and doors that it smashes through. Its appearance is quite intimidating to say the least. Its large head and its blank stare with its empty eye sockets definitely make it a frightening character. As the Ink Brute lumbers around, its feet would make a loud thunderous sound. And the noises that it makes would be a low groaning sound. As it walks around and looks for the player, they'd be able to hear these sounds whenever the Ink Brute was near. So for where exactly this creature comes from isn't made quite clear. But one theory that would be quite interesting would be if it belonged to the Butcher Gang. The Ink Brute could be a creature they have on hand that could be used to capture the player. When Wilson put out the call to hunt down Audrey, this would be the perfect opportunity to unleash this large beast and hunt her down. The Ink Brute would be one of the strongest enemies in the game and would stop at nothing to get the player. As we can see in the trailer, they can be seen smashing through what looks to be a doorway. When the Ink Brute is chasing down Audrey, they could have the ability to break through walls and doors. Hence all the debris that is stuck in their large inky body. The Ink Brute could break through all these walls and doors and would put Audrey at a great disadvantage. Whereas Audrey would be able to close doors and lock off enemies, now enemies such as Lost Ones and Searchers can freely roam around wherever they want. No longer can Audrey block them off and deal with them one at a time. So as the Ink Brute is charging after the player, they would need to try and get as much distance from them as they can. With the Ink Brute's large body and immense strength, they would cause a whole bunch of damage to the player. But although they are large in size and would deal a whole bunch of damage, there is still a way that Audrey can defeat it. The key would be to knock loose all of the debris sticking out of its body. If we go with the theory that the Ink Brute's body is just a pile of debris that was brought to life by the ink, then knocking out the loose pieces of debris would eventually cause the ink to slide off their body as it collapses back into a pile of junk. But doing this wouldn't be so easy. The player needs to be careful in how they approach the Ink Brute. If it's charging straight towards them, then they obviously can't just run up and knock a piece off or else they'll take damage. So the player needs to wait until the Ink Brute isn't charging and looking around for the player. There will be moments in time when the Ink Brute will stop charging and look around for the player. This would be a kind of cooldown phase. And this would be when the player needs to take their shot. They would run up to the Brute and whack out a piece of debris with their gent pipe. As soon as another piece gets knocked out, the Brute would then go back into its charge mode and chase the player. It would work well for the player to make a loop that they can run in and always get out of view. They could use the many broken doorways and holes in the walls to loop around and get the drop on them. When Audrey is down to the last few pieces of debris, the Ink Brute would get even more furious and become much more aggressive. Audrey would have to be careful not to get caught by them in this last stage, or else it would be an instant kill. Also, when running away from the Ink Brute, there could be a number of enemies roaming around the area as well. So not only would Audrey have to be careful and look out for the Ink Brute, but she would have to look out for the Lost Ones and Watchers as well. The best course of action that the player would need to take is to defeat these enemies first. The last thing that Audrey would want to do is run into an enemy whilst running from the Ink Brute. So after knocking out piece after piece, finally Audrey knocks out the last piece and the Ink Brute's body would start to crumble and fall apart. All the ink would drip off their body, revealing the debris-filled skeleton underneath. This pile of junk would start to wobble and then tumble over. Audrey would then have finally defeated this troublesome enemy. Now, as to if the Ink Brute will be a standalone boss or a different type of enemy in this area, it isn't exactly made clear at this point. But I think if the Ink Brute was a standalone boss, then this could make for a really interesting and tense boss fight. The Ink Brute could also be the first boss fight that you have in the game. As to how this fight initiates is unclear at the moment. But I think that the Ink Brute being a large monster that belongs to the Butcher Gang would be a pretty cool idea as well. This large hulking creature would act as sort of a henchman or a guard for the gang. Regardless of all that, I think that the Ink Brute is quite an interesting enemy slash boss to add to Bendy and the Dark Revival. And I can't wait to see the way in which this character moves, responds, and hunts down the player. But I guess we'll all have to wait and see till we get this character's official name and see them in action when Bendy and the Dark Revival finally launches. I'm sure they won't be the only large ink creature that we'll see in the game. With the trailer showing us so little, we are bound to see so many awesome new creatures, that's for sure. Alrighty everyone, well that's what we have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, commenting and subscribing, as it helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. As always, let us know in the comment section down below what you thought of the Ink Brute and what you'd like to see going forward. Alrighty everyone, to the next video, catch you later, bye.